So today we had the live stream of Norsca. Creative Assembly decided to show us off, not all of, but a good portion of the units of Norsca that is soon to come here in August. We got about 11 or so units that we got to kind of taste test, as it were, getting an idea for their unit cards, their actual art and models in game. So a lot of exciting things have been happening for Total War. So I'm pretty stoked to see what the future brings. There's quite a bit coming our way. But what I want to do today is just kind of go through those unit cards, talk about what we've seen with what we've discussed already in the roster reveal and what we've discussed already in lore, and just kind of go through what they've actually now given us. So we see here with Wolfrik the Wanderer, he's an armored. He's armored and shielded with a silver shield, so he's going to be really, really good when it comes to any kind of ranged combat. He is a melee expert and he is a duelist as well, so he is going to be able to really go toe-to-toe with a lot of other units out there, other heroes out there, and getting them down fast and hard. With his ability to lock them down as well, and for bonuses to him, I think that Wulfrik is going to be a pretty good choice in the multiplayer meta. I really like what they did with the model too. Like they were describing a lot about how they decided to do certain things here and there, and it was really cool to see during the stream what their overall decisions were for things, how they decided to do this or that. And you can see from our little nubs here that he's got like the hold the line and the standard kind of fervor, or not fervor, the one ability that increases fervor and speed. As well as the leadership and defense bonus as well. So he's got a number of standard kind of Lord choice abilities, but also his additional ones with the Sea Fang as well. So I'm very interested to see how popular he is in the meta. If he's something that people choose over Throg, or if Throg reigns supreme. With him having the capability to be on a War Mammoth, that would kind of give him the edge, I'd assume, depending on the type of army you're up against. We'll get to the War Mammoth and kind of his forte, but we'll jump over to Throg. And Throg's pretty beastly. I'll be totally honest with you guys. I mean, the fact that he's armor piercing, a melee expert, he's got frostbite and his regeneration, and he's monstrous, which might be both a negative and a positive thing, because he does cause fear, as we see from his tooltip. He's got the standard kind of things that you get from a lord as well, but he has the new frostbite mechanic, which does slow things down around him as he does damage to them with his melee attack. That's that little symbol is next to melee attack. It's going to be the new symbol for frostbite, and this leads me to believe maybe we'll be seeing some new melee attack styles in Total War Warhammer 2, because they said that Norsca is going to start to sample some of the things that make Total War Warhammer 2 unique. There's some new things that we're going to be seeing. So you see here with Throg, he does have that regeneration, and as they even mentioned it in the video, regeneration is kind of king when it comes to having an ability to have your lord regenerate his health, his or her health. Like you look at Sigvald. Sigvald is in the fight for a long time, or Manfred or Vlad von Karstein. They're in the fight for a long time. They've got that ability to just kind of stay a constant. But we also see he has the anti-infantry mechanic as well. So Throg's going to be that kind of lord that gets in deep, just kind of like Kolek does, and just swipes things aside. So he is obviously going to be a larger creature, so he's going to be easy to target by ranged. But I think with his regeneration capabilities, he should be able to weather that storm in and out of combat as he sees fit. But if we take a look at the two here, they both have around the same weapon strength, but we can see that Wulfrik has a higher melee attack, so he's probably going to be hitting a little more often, and there's no real sentiment as to what his actual weapons might be like, as far as an ability to increase those weapon strength through quests or the sword. But those are our two lord choices for Norsca, the only ones that we saw in the stream. That, like I said, we didn't get to see all the goodies, but we got to see a good amount of them. And I figured this whole format of showing you the pictures as I've just kind of grabbed them from the screen and I'm going through them, this might be the easier format than trying to kind of edit it as I jump back and forth from picture to picture. Because we're going over here to the Frostworm now. And the Frostworm, as you can see, is pretty much a ice-themed Chaos Dragon. But I'm quite okay with that because he looks fucking rad. Like, look at those wings. Holy hot-covered shit. I'm really stoked on it. But he's also going to have the Frostbite mechanic and magic damage and AP. And one thing they pointed out about the Frostworm is that he's very fast. He's speed of 90. So he's going to be able to really hunt down anything that's kind of going on fringe fleeing, or can really hunt down anything that you want it to focus on and stay on. I mean, nothing's more frustrating than having like a Lord on foot attack, like say like the Fey Enchantress, which is on her unicorn, and she gets down to like a sliver of health left and just bolts out of there on her horse. It's like, son of a bitch. At least with the Frostworm, you can have that kind of constant hunting, and I'm really excited to see them in combat because they're going to have that aura, that chill wind aura, like the ice wraiths do, or I'm sorry, chill wraiths do. So I'm the chill bros. I'm curious to see how they're going to do that with the Frostworm, because that's something that's a mechanic we're probably going to see with the Frostheart's Phoenix. So I'm very, very interested to see that, because I'll be playing High Elves quite a bit, to the point that you all get pissed off at me, I hope. But you can see from the weapon strength of the Frostworm, it matches already what we've already seen in the 2 Lords. So those 2 Lords are hitting very, very hard for a standard Lord unit. So it's going to be very interesting to see that those 2 Lords in conjunction with Frostworms just doling out the damage. But we'll jump on over to the War Mammoth. As we've talked about, is the mount for the Chieftain and for Wulfrik. Also, I believe they can be mounted on Chaos Chariots. I don't have my notes up for that, but I'm almost 100% sure. And I'm sorry about this. I spoke in error. Throg has anti-large, not anti-infantry. That's the anti-infantry symbol. So the War Mammoth is armored, armor-piercing, anti-infantry, and causes terror. There is 2 versions of this mammoth. There's the War Mammoth and there's the Feral Mammoth. The Feral Mammoth is not going to have all this armor on it. Probably not the cool motif on the tusks, which is just fucking cool. They went into that, how like it was really a joy to model like those tusks, to have the skulls engraved into them and everything like that. And I think that's a really, really cool touch as well. But the Feral Mammoth is also not going to have the little house on the back, more or less, that's going to have archers shooting from it. Because you can see on here, this has a missile strength, an anti-large missile strength, because those are javelin guys on the top that are going to be shooting from the top of that mammoth. In the same way that we're going to see that with the, I think it's this, the Bastillodons and Stegodons of, I'm sorry, just the, yeah, both of Lizardmen. We're going to see some skinks on top of them, hucking and shooting and hucking. And we're even going to see Mazdamundi on one as well, on an ancient Stegodon. So it'll be, I'm just using Stegodon because it's the easiest name I can think of right now, because I know it's a different name, slightly different one. But we're going to see that mechanic already coming out with the Lizardmen. So I think this is kind of their way of teasing that kind of functionality and getting players used to that playstyle. You know, we're going to have a pretty strong monstrous unit that's going to have a dual role right here with the War Mammoth. So it's got that anti-infantry, like I was saying. And it's really cool when you watch the video. It just bursts through things like a Mumakil in not Star Wars, but in Lord of the Rings, just like throwing things left and right. It's like moving its tusks all over the place and knocking shit all over the place. So it's going to be a really cool unit to see on the battlefield, because it's got that terror mechanic. Like, imagine this thing routing a whole unit of greenskins right off the bat, just because there's like 3 or 4 of them. In the army that they assembled, they had about 3 or 4 of them, I believe, in conjunction with the Worm and some other units as well. So it leads me to believe that they'll at least be moderately to lowly priced. Again, I don't want to look at their numbers that they put on the stream as an indication of what their price is going to be like in multiplayer. That's a really, really big thing, guys. Don't ever look at those things that are in production and go, that's the way it's going to be. This is going to suck. I've played so many betas that I'm blue in the face, so I know not to really kind of put stock in anything until it's launched 100%. I mean, even some of these rules are going to change, so that is important to know. All this is subject to change, but this gives you at least a good idea of what's going to happen here. We'll jump on over to the Fimir Bale Fiend. So the Fimir are really cool. The Fimir were only in like edition 1 and 2. I read a really great article about them and how like they were kind of like a last ditch effort to make a race that was going to be cool, rather than like this half centaur, half lizardman type unit, or half lizard, half centaur that was going to come about. As instead, they were saying like, hey, it's going to be this or the Fimir or something else, you choose. And they made the Fimir instead. So the Fimir are all going to have magic damage. So there's the Bale Fiend. There's actually going to be a monstrous unit of Fimir that are not just the sorcerer here. So they are going to be sundering armor, and they're going to be magic and AP as well. So they're going to be really, really good to use against, say, like a dwarf army, or really great to use against a predominantly heavy army such as just the Chaos Warriors. So they're really cool in that regard. It's rare that we see magic, sunder, and AP on a unit that is not a character. I mean, this unit obviously is a character, but we'll be seeing that, like they said, on just the monstrous standard unit version of these guys. So that's pretty fucking cool if you ask me. This one's got fire as well, but they were saying that the difference between this and, say, the Marauder Shaman, because that is the other caster of Norsca, is that the Fimir is going to be a little bit better in melee combat. You know, they're meant to kind of get up close and personal. They're a monstrous unit in and of themselves. Funny story about that, actually. So they were not intended to be monstrous in tabletop. They were intended to be the size of orcs, which are on a 25mm base. 20mm base is the standard for pretty much everything else. But then you jump up to the monstrous units, which I think are 40mm. And those units actually, the way tabletop works is anything that's in base contact can attack something. So a 40mm can contact two 20mm bases in the front, and then 2 on its corners, and on each corner. So, you know, you've got a total of 6 units fighting 1 unit. That's how they kind of leveled the playing field out for, say, an ogre or a Fimir and stuff like that. But the Fimir were not intended to be on 40mm bases, and they were accidentally put on them. And they had stat lines that were representative of 25mm bases. So people didn't really choose them a lot in tabletop. People kind of shoved them off to the side. They were saying, like, you know, this is not worth it monetarily because I'm buying this giant pewter model that has a shitty stat line for a high price. So that's honestly the life and the death of Fimir. There's a whole bunch of other things of conjecture about their origin stories and stuff like that. They're kind of modeled after a lot of typical, I believe it was Norse or Celtic mythology. So a lot of traditional mythology backgrounds went into the Fimir, and it kind of got a little skewed in the way. And if you guys want to know what where that article is, I can definitely link it to you. It was on the Reddit. It was a really, really good read if you haven't read it. I can link it out if you're all interested in that. But so we do have the Fimir Bale Fiend. He is one of our spellcasters for the Norsca here. But as you can see, 400 weapon strength, quite a bit of armor and melee defense. This guy's really, or well, not melee defense, but maybe armor really. This guy's no slouch when it comes to melee combat. So that's going to kind of be the overall theme for Norsca, because they are designed to be in that melee combat. They get that 3-stage buff of like basically upgraded frenzy, and we'll go into that picture later. I didn't want to jump too far ahead with the Berzerkers, but we'll go into that in a little bit. But we do have now the Skin Wolves, and these guys are pretty rad. There's 2 variations. There's an armored version and a normal version. This normal version is anti-large, as you can see. It's got frenzy, it's got regeneration, but they're just these giant werewolves, and they're just fucking cool looking. They're going to be quite quick. You can see a speed of 75. So they're a little bit slower than a dragon by 15, so gives you an idea of how quick they're going to be. But they said that these are going to be really your flanking units. You're going to use Skin Wolves to outflank people, get in the back line, harass, where your armored Skin Wolves are going to be a little bit more of a perpetual combat variant. They're going to be able to kind of toast to the line and stick to. Whereas obviously these guys are going to be all over the place. And they do cause fear, which is another strong thing. And they have a physical resistance, as you can see from the icon down below. We also have the one of the many flavors of Marauder we're going to have, the Marauder Berserkers. So they're your anti-infantry kind of damage dealers with frenzy. So basically like your souped up version of Flagellants with cooler tattoos, better weaponry, and overall better aesthetics. But these guys are actually gonna have their new Berserk mechanic, which is a 3-stage buff. And I want to get that up here real quick. There we go. And that actually is going to, so you see right here, stage 1, 16 leadership. Stage 2, leadership and physical resist. Stage 3, 22% physical resistance, 16% or 16 attack, and 16 leadership. So you get this better buff than the Norsca Standard Edition buff. And that's my background if you guys were wondering what it was. A better version than the actual Norsca buff, and it really allows them to kind of level the playing field as well. Everything just kind of went crazy right here. There we go. So yeah, back to Berzerkers here. Sorry about that. So again, anti-infantry. You can see here that they're going to be pretty. I think they're going to be a really cool unit because they're going to be able to really kind of have the same mechanic that flagellants have or battle pilgrims have in a lot of the other human armies that we've seen already, because they're going to complement really well the Marauder champions, which are going to be, if you look at them already, they're really beastly looking units. I really like the overall aesthetic they went with these. One of the mods that came out, the Ultimate Chaos mod that you've seen me use in some of my Chaos battles, they have kind of they use Huskarls, I believe, which is actually a like ancient Norse term for a specific type of axe fighter. But these Marauder champions kind of echo that same design, where they've got the overall Marauder look, but with like helmets and a little bit more spiky bits on them, some more oomph. And you can see their armor too. Armored and shield is one of their abilities too, but they have that armor on them, their bronze shield. So they're going to be a really standard, really strong frontline fighter. They're going to be able to get up close and personal and really hold the line. So your Berzerkers, back to these guys, can jump in and really fill the gaps with some damage there. I like the fact that we're going to be seeing a lot of axed infantry out of Norsca, which just kind of fits that overall theme. You know, hard boner being that in what it is. Then we'll jump over to their hunters, and these are going to be your close quarters infantry. More, not necessarily skirmishers, but they're going to have a much shorter range, and they're going to a range of only 65, which is not that huge in the grand scheme of things. But they are going to have AP, which a lot of Norsca does have. We've seen almost every unit so far has had AP, so they're going to be able to put the threat across to many different units and in the Warhammer world without having to worry too much, because it seems that Norsca is a lot about trying to trigger their 3-stage buff mechanic as fast as possible. So trying to get in that combat and try and win that combat, or at least hold the line as best as they can. As you can see here, 50 leadership, 75 leadership, 70 leadership. So you do have 60, 60, 70, 61, 70, 75. So you don't have the terrible leadership that we would expect from most Marauders. In fact, these guys are kind of some of what we would expect from already in Total War Warhammer 1 with their 50 leadership. I can't remember the actual Marauder leadership, but it's not high, I'll tell you that. But these guys are going to be hucking axes left and right. This is one of the range units. I believe we also have a shielded unit and a javelin variant of this unit as well. But which means we over to one of the more exciting units I'm really excited to talk about here is the oh, and one thing to notice, they are supposed to be really good in melee combat. Not to tease your penis with what you just saw, or your tits, whatever. But they're supposed to be pretty good melee fighters. So kind of in the line like a Free Company militia, which can actually go toe to toe with things. Maybe the Marauder hunters will have that kind of mechanic as well. But we do have now the Norscan Ice Troll, and that is going to be a really cool unit. There's a unit of 12 in these here, so they're not a standalone monster in and of themselves, but they do have that frostbite mechanic. They're going to have regeneration. They're going to have AP again. So they have subpar leadership at 38, and I was really hoping that these trolls would have higher leadership. I know in tabletop, trolls historically don't have high leadership. It's a fact, but I was just really hoping that these guys would. But these guys, we saw them in the stream. They just get up and dirty. They in a way that I think the other trolls in the Chaos roster just don't do. I really like their frostbite mechanic. I like their aesthetics. I like the way that they just created this unit overall, and I'm really excited to use them in multiplayer along with the giant. And this is the same giant that we saw from the trailer for Norsca. I thought that the trailer, or the giant we saw in the trailer, was a different giant, one of the many giants we've seen from the Beastmen or from Chaos. So I was surprised to see that this was in fact the giant. But standard fare for a giant here. Armor piercing, anti-infantry, causes terror. There's nothing special about this giant aside from the fact that he looks like a Norscan giant. But it is good to know that he is in the game, because he's going to be quite fucking cool. But really, guys, that kind of wraps up the entirety of what we saw unit-wise in the video today. Outside of that, we did get a peep at some other goodies here. We got a look at the Beastmen Regiments of Renown and the Norsca Regiments of Renown. We didn't get any details on them at all. Here's just the two quick pictures on them. I wanted to get them out so you guys can see them. I'm really curious as to what we're going to see with this. A lot of people think that this means that they're confirmed for everything. Chaos is going to get it. Wood Elves are going to get it. Bretonnia is going to get it. I'm sure they'll get it eventually, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we were going to see it right out the gate, guys. I think that we're definitely probably going to see the Beastmen pretty soon, and we're definitely going to see the Norsca one, because as you can see, we also have them in the Norsca roster itself. We don't have any details on them, what that, and the PH is probably their kind of stand-in picture as they flesh out the actual one here. But you can also see from this picture some of the other units from the Norsca roster. But guys, I'm really excited for Norsca. I'm going to be playing them a lot with y'all, so you can see how they really kind of flesh out. I'll go through the campaign if you guys are interested in going through the campaign with me. I know I've done some campaigns before in the past, but hopefully with a brand new one like this, it'll be a little more interesting for you guys, so it'll be a little bit more fresh. But as always, if you do have any questions, anything you observed from the stream that I maybe didn't cover, I was at work, so I couldn't spend 100% dedication to listening to it. Do let me know. I'd love to just kind of touch on those things for you and go over them. But thanks for watching here today, guys. Have a good one and take care.